Well, we live in a world that's gone absolutely mad. I mean, we've had over the past few years near medico tyranny. It continues on today, where a young baby in New Zealand is being forcibly abducted by the law from the parents so that a medical procedure can be done on that child that the parents don't agree with, when an alternative procedure could have happened. We've got now proposals right across the Western world and beyond for a digital identity system which will undermine our privacy and our freedoms and lead to more government control. And of course, there's our friends at Davos, the World Economic Forum, who want us to own nothing and be happy as part of their great reset agenda. At times like this, where the world has, it seems, gone mad, what we need is strong voices speaking up for us. Very glad one of those voices has come from Australia. G'day, I'm George Christensen, former Australian politician and editor of Nation First. Get over to nationfirst.substack.com, where we've got some great news and analysis to share with you. Also, please like this video, subscribe to this channel, and click the bell to get alerts when we've got more news on the Great Reset and other matters to share with you. But today, we're talking about a man who's spoken up for so many after so much silencing, after so much censorship. That man is none other than my good friend, Senator Gerard Rennick. Now, Senator Rennick has spoken up in the Australian Parliament. His speech that he gave about the whole pandemic shenanigans has just taken the world by storm. It's certainly taken Australia by storm. You don't have to be an Australian to actually get what's going on here. What he's saying applies right throughout the world. So let's hear from Senator Rennick. I'm going to give a little bit of commentary to explain a few things, but Senator Rennick, he packs a punch. Just watch the video.
Well, here we are, the end of 2022, and we've had over 10 million cases of COVID. The Australian Health Department, of course, stopped counting around September sometime because I think it was getting too embarrassing to admit that despite with over 20 million people being vaccinated, over half the country had caught COVID. Whatever happened to protecting you? Whatever happened to protecting you? But we don't want to talk about that anymore. We'll just pull it off the website and not discuss it. We'll not discuss it. And then we've got the excess deaths that Senator Babbitt talked about before. We had 8,706 extra deaths last year, despite the fact that New South Wales locked down for 3 months. So in theory, the deaths should have been lower, like they were in 2020. But let's not count 2021 in the ABS figures, or sorry, 2020 they're not counting. Let's pretend nothing happened there. Almost 140,000 jab injuries, more than all the injuries reported from vaccines since 1971. More than all the injuries put together. You've got an injury rate that's 3 times higher, and yet the TGA don't want to look at the signal.
That's right.
The whole point of having a database where doctors report these injuries, where they tick the box suspected, and as the doctors say, they don't fill these forms out because they don't have the spare time. They don't have a lazy 20 or 30 minutes sitting around filling these forms out if someone fell off a bike. No, they're ticking these boxes because they believe that the vaccine caused the injury that they are reporting. And yet the TGA want to pretend that there's nothing to see here. And why wouldn't they? Because Professor Skerritt is head of an organisation that is funded by Big Pharma. That is funded by Big Pharma. Now, if you want to talk...
Now, this is quite correct what Senator Rennick said here. The Therapeutic Goods Administration, which is the regulator for medicines and vaccines and the like in this country, gets its funding from Big Pharma. It's quite bizarre. The same happens in Australia in our banking sector, and I know the same happens in the US and many other countries. Why would you have the regulator of an industry being funded by that industry? Beggars belief. Goes to a conflict of interest.
Talk about a conflict of interest. That's it. That's it. And these guys have no idea what they are talking about. I asked Professor Brendan Murphy, who was the Chief Health Officer at the time, whether or not he'd actually read the non-clinical report into the Pfizer vaccine. Guess what? He hadn't read it. Despite that, he'd been saying for the last a couple of days earlier that the spike protein wasn't in the blood. Well, had he read the report, he would have known that they never even tested the spike protein. And they would have also known that when they did the animal trials, that the report said there was no difference in lung inflammation between the placebo group and the vaccinated group after 9 days. There was not one skerrick of evidence that showed that that vaccine was effective. But did anyone in this chamber right here, right now, actually read that report? I bet you not. But you all went out there and said it was safe and effective where you didn't have a clue what you were talking about. And shame on you, because the law in this country in the Australian Immunisation Register says you cannot be coerced into taking a vaccine, number one, and number two is that you need to be properly informed about what is in the vaccine. Now, you've got to dig very far to get to the bottom of this stuff, but that spike protein in the vaccine isn't even the same as the spike protein in the virus. No. They've actually changed one of the nucleotides, and they've actually got a synthetic gene in the vaccine. They've added 70 adenine nucleotides to the poly-A tail, which is designed to make it last longer. It's designed to last longer. The mRNA in the trials was shown to last for up to 9 days. The lipids were shown to last at least 2 days, and they stopped the trials, despite the fact that it doubled. Yeah, listen to this, Senator Hanson-Young. Despite the fact that the concentration of the lipids that are cationic were doubled in the ovaries from day 1 to day 2. You know what they did? They stopped the trial. They stopped the trial and they went and told everyone that it just stays at the site of injection. Well, that was a blatant lie. If you want to talk about misinformation, go and check out page 44 of the Pfizer non-clinical trial report. It was released on the TGA FIO disclosure log 239-6. I've read it numerous times. And guess what? Also read the top paragraph of page 8 that says that the study suggests that the spike protein can be either inserted into the membrane or secreted from the cell. Now, what does that tell you? I'll tell you what that tells you. It tells you that rather than actually killing the actual pathogen, which is what a normal vaccine would have done, this particular vaccine goes inside your cell, takes over the reproduction, the ribosomes, which is what produces the protein, and then starts producing more of the toxic substance. That is not the name of the game. You would want to actually kill the virus. You do not want to reproduce it. And of course, Brendan Murphy, the Chief Health Officer, claims that there's nothing to worry about. He never read the document. And then we've got Professor Kelly. Of course, he came out and made the bold statement that it stops transmission. Well, he was lying, because the FDA came out in December 20 and said that there was no evidence that the vaccine stopped transmission. And when I pressed him on it, there's no trials to show that there's any IgA in the mucosal system. Okay, you don't have to take my word for it. Go and speak to Robert Clancy, Australia's foremost immunologist and vaccinologist.
Read his stuff.
Okay, he's retired. You can trust this guy. He's not on the take from Big Pharma or the big universities that aren't actually interested in research. They're just interested in lining their own pockets. And then, of course, we've got the vaccine injury scheme, which is just a joke. And today and last night and day after day for the last 15 months, I get contacted by people who have had their lives destroyed by this vaccine, a vaccine that the government said was safe and effective. And if that isn't bad enough, that these people, and I'm looking at you people in this chamber here today, didn't read the documents, that took over someone else's body because it suited your narrative, your command and control narrative, you showed no humanity. No humanity. There are people out there that have not only injured, they have lost their jobs and they cannot get medical support to help them. There are husbands and wives of injured couples who've had to quit their jobs to stay home and look after those people who are being injured, are in incredible amount of pain. And the fact that you're interjecting, Senator Hanson-Young, just goes to show the type of person you are.
Now, I'm going to stop him here because he goes into full flight, and so he should. I mean, here is Senator Sarah Hanson-Young. You've got to understand this. She is in the Australian Greens Party, who style themselves as the champion of the little people. They style themselves as the attacker of big corporations. They're there with the green movement, the environmental movement, protesting against the big guy. And here is one of their senators interjecting when he's talking about the victims of Big Pharma interjecting, disparaging him, attacking him. And so Gerard gives her both barrels, and I'm going to say she deserved it.
How dare you come into this chamber? How dare you come into this chamber and start mocking the vaccine injured?
Senator Waters, your point of order. Senator Rennick, please sit down.
Order.
Senator Waters.
Point of order, reflecting on another senator as well as being odious and tedious.
Not the second part. Senator Rennick, just withdraw to the extent that you made an adverse inference.
Well, the fact that the Greens party can sit in that corner over there and mock and laugh the vaccine injured. These people aren't anti-vaxxers. They believed what the government told them, as I did when I first came to this place. But I can tell you what, there's nothing but a cesspit of lies in this place. The fact that the Greens party thinks that they can just sit there and mock the injured. These people believed in the government. You want to talk about trust and transparency? Oh, yep, there's Senator Walters again mocking, going, come on. Maybe you should pick up the phone. Maybe you people should pick up the phone and talk to some of these people who have been injured. And then we go to the basis, the substance of this Act, the Fair Work Act. This is a public health issue. Now,
I've got to just stop in there for another second and explain what's going on here. So Senator Rennick's not just getting up and speaking for the sake of speaking. He's actually with a small group of senators, including Senator Malcolm Roberts from One Nation, Senator Pauline Hanson from One Nation, Senator Alex Antic from the same party that Senator Gerard Rennick is, the Liberal Party, and Senator Matt Canavan. I think the United Australia Party, Senator Ralph Babbitt's in there as well. And they're putting forward an amendment to what is called the Fair Work Act. And the Fair Work Act is all about employment. And so what they're trying to do is insert an amendment into that act that prohibits someone being discriminated against because of their vaccination status when it comes to employment. So very, very important. And what's happening here is that it's being opposed by just about all the parties. But the Greens, the ones that are supposed to stand up for the little people against the big guy, against big corporations in particular, they're the ones doing the most screaming and being the most disparaging. So here we go. He's going to talk about this amendment.
The idea that businesses in this country can be responsible for the transmission of an airborne virus is just as absurd as the billions of dollars that are getting wasted on the idea of some tiny trace gas in the atmosphere can control that. I mean, we are living in the land of the unicorn farmers and the intellectual pygmies who have just chasing the impossible dream like Sancho Panza chasing the windmills. It is absurd. And yet we stand here today, almost 3 years after the virus, broke out in China or whatever, and we have still got this ridiculous mandates in so many places, in particular in the private industry, which is what this amendment will address, and they are still being coerced into getting a vaccine. I've literally just had 3 messages in the last hour about people who are losing their jobs, not in the health sector, but in sectors that are outdoors, nothing to do. It is absurd. It is absurd, and it needs to stop because the state of emergency, even at the state government level, has been retracted. And yet these people here today do not want to grant people their autonomous right to control what goes in their body. And I might remind members of the LNP that one of our values is the dignity and worth of every individual. You know, we don't believe in multi-patent bargaining because we recognise that every business is unique, and we think that, you know, the employer and employee should have the first right in deciding what's best for them. That is what we believe in empowering the individuals to make the decisions that, suit their needs the best, and only the individual or the parent of the child can make that decision. But what we've got here today is typical command and control. We've got the Labor Party and the Greens protecting their own narrative that the government can save us. Govern me harder, Daddy. That is what these people believe in.
Honestly, that is going to have to go down as one of the best lines in Parliament. I got a T-shirt that says that. But that is the mantra that we get from the Labor Party and the Greens. Sadly, it's the mantra that we also got during the pandemic from the Liberal and some in the National Party as well. And Senator Gerard Rennick is a part of that party. but he's standing up. He's there fighting the good fight. And we need more people like him in parliaments and legislatures and congresses right around the world, speaking up for freedom, speaking out against big pharma, speaking out against medico tyranny, speaking out against attacks on our freedom and privacy, like the digital identity system proposals that we have in so many countries, speaking out against Klaus Schwab, speaking out against the Davos elite, the World Economic Forum, and their Great Reset agenda. Only with people like Senator Gerard Rennick speaking out are we going to actually get some change. Thanks very much for joining us. Please like this video, subscribe to this channel, and click the little bell to get more alerts when we've got news to share with you on the Great Reset and other matters. And of course, get over to nationfirst.substack.com, subscribe to it so you can get the news and analysis Monday to Friday on world affairs. As always, God bless you, your family, and our nation. I'm George Christensen. This has been Nation First.